You just have to go back 10 years, you know, one generation back, where your Kia would double its value if you filled up a full tank of gas. Not in this car. These are nice cars now, but still, people's notion still goes back there. Welcome back to Adam Drives LA, where I drive the coolest cars on LA's most iconic roads. Today we're in gorgeous Playa del Rey, California, with a beautiful example of the 2021 Kia Stinger GT line. Now, believe it or not, I have never driven a Kia Stinger, and today is the day it's finally going to happen. Every time I see one of these on the road, I still turn my head because it has a hell of a road presence, a gorgeous exterior design. So if you're considering getting one of these, watch this video as I'm going to go through all of my first impressions on the exterior design, the interior features, and the overall driving experience of the 2021 Kia Stinger. Now, if you enjoy videos like this where I quickly review a car, go through the pros and cons, please consider subscribing to the channel, scroll down, smash the like button. Without any further ado, let's jump right in and see what this thing's all about. Inside, let's talk a little bit about the car. The Kia Stinger was unveiled in 2017. The current 2021 GT line, which is what we are in, has an MSRP of $33,000. Let's start with my favorite part about this car, and that would be its exterior styling. Now, like I said, every time I see one drive by, I still stop and stare because it has such a nice road-going presence. The grille, everything about it is very sporty. They have really done a great job hiding and disguising the hatchback on this car, making it still incredibly practical because it has that hatchback. It's nice and roomy, which we'll talk about when we jump into the interior, but it's also still designed so well, and we're going to get into why and how they pulled that off. Now, if we start by looking at the long wheelbase, the front and the rear overhangs, you'll see that this car, they've really stretched it out to hide the hatchback look of it, to not make it look like a tall car. They've done a great job there. And by elongating things like those rear taillights, now a lot of people have a problem with these, but I can kind of get past it. I know, especially on a white car, this long red strip on the side, the reflector really stands out. On a black car, on a red car, they don't stand out just as much. So I think we can forgive that. Maybe it's something new they're trying, but it worked. It really helps to elongate the car. As I said, on the front, you'll see a lot of these scoops and these black painted vents. Now, the hood vents, they are fakes. The vents on the side, they seem real, but I don't know. I doubt they're really doing anything. If anything, they might just be causing drag. But the aggressiveness comes from the design of the notch on the top of the windshield, for example. Look at that. A lot of sport cars don't even have this. Or the sharp LED headlights with tons of detail in them, the black painted, black chrome grille. All of these add to giving it that sporty look. And let's not forget those gorgeous wheels. Overall, we can absolutely agree the design is sexy. It is an attractive image, and as you walk around the rear, you'll see those iconic quad exhausts that the Stinger was known for when it first came out. Now, I think it's a little bit silly and overkill considering that the GT line, the one we are in, is a small 4-cylinder. It's a 2.4 turbo, so the quad exhaust is a little bit overkill, like I said, and considering that the 2022 model has even bigger exhaust pipes. And as nice as the car looks, we do have to agree that it's been 4 years and the car really hasn't changed or evolved at all. So it is about time for a refreshment. Again, considering it is a beautiful car, but you can't just stick to it because it looks good. We do have to evolve it, and you can see a lot of those dated features in the interior that really require a little bit more evolution. So let's jump into the interior. Now, when you first get in, the first thing you notice is this doesn't look like any other car you've ever seen. The interior is just shaped oddly, the placement of things, the shapes of things. It seems like they really went out there. I have to respect the fact that they tried to be bold with a new model to really differentiate, not make it look very much like a Kia, to make it look like something different. This does have a Stinger badge in the back, so they're trying to probably brand it a little bit more outside of the Kia brand. So I do appreciate that. Now, with that said, there's no arguing that when you get into the car from the passenger side and you look at that center panel, it just reminds you of a truck, or maybe getting on a bus, and this would be the area where you drop your coins into. I don't know, there's something about it that's just a little bit bland and kind of empty all around it, so it reminds me of kind of a utilitarian truck, and I don't like that for a sporty sedan. Now, ahead of me, you do have an analog gauge cluster with a very small digital screen. There are just a couple of things you can go through. Again, I'm going to go through a couple of things here in the interior that will really demonstrate how technology has sort of left this car behind, and they really need to revamp everything about this car. More evidence that the car is sort of lacking the modern technology. This infotainment screen, it's a very small screen. It still looks like it was just kind of thrown in there last minute. It has that weird look to it where they just stuck an iPad, and it's not large enough. It's a very small screen. The resolution is not good. Check this out. When I go into reverse, look at the reverse camera. The quality is bad. It doesn't get any bigger. You cannot change the camera angle. There's one angle. It's in that sense, it's awful. And it's a very slow kind of infotainment system. When you go through it, everything lags a little bit, as you can see. So they definitely need to refresh this. There's just not a lot to do, and you don't even want to do what little there is because of the laggy system. In that same screen, look at this. When I go through the drive modes, look how boring these graphics are. I mean, you remember the Mach-E, you remember the Ford F-150, all of the newer cars that I've driven have this exciting kind of video that plays. They show the rock crawling when you're in rock crawl mode. This one just sort of highlights other parts of the car. It really doesn't change that much. I've been driving it around in sport mode, but I don't know, the graphics, like, that's just another thing that need to be updated to keep up with the current cars in this price range. The overall feeling in the cabin is it's a nice place to be. It's pretty quiet. It's a comfortable ride. It's spacious enough. This is not a full-size sedan. This is still a mid-size hatchback, almost on a crossover level. Plenty of room for myself and my passenger. I jumped in the rear. As you can see, tons of legroom. I did not expect that much legroom. Plenty of headroom for a hatchback. Once again, they've done a great job really disguising the hatchbackness of this car. There's a little USB port in the middle and the rear. Nothing that much. Not too exciting, and that's a theme in the car. There's not a lot of excitement in the interior design wise. Now, the door is pretty boring. The passenger side, there's really not much to look at. So if anybody ever tries to compare this to a BMW 3 Series, Audi A4, Mercedes C-Class, no, it's nowhere near on the quality of the materials as those cars are. Those cars are just on another level. I mean, you look at just the door on one of those cars, they have put so much design, so much wood, and just the lighting elements. This car really doesn't have any of that, so I know it's nowhere near on par of those, but I don't think it's that necessarily trying to be, and we'll talk a little bit about that in my conclusion. Let's talk a little bit about the driving experience of this car, which is definitely worth talking about. Now, first things first, the GT line comes with a turbo 4-cylinder. It is a 2.4 liter. It makes about 255 horsepower, 260 pound-feet of torque. Now, the bizarre thing is, look at inside the engine compartment, just how much extra space there is. This car obviously was meant for the V6 that's in the other models. We'll talk a little bit about the other models, but this one, again, it comes with the 4-cylinder, tons of extra space. I've never seen that much space in a modern car. Now, as I said, I wouldn't let anybody describe this car as luxurious in any sense, but it is definitely sporty. The car is athletic. It downshifts quickly, that 8-speed automatic. The steering is just so balanced. It's immediate. The responsiveness is like a little sport car, like a little coupe. I mean, you don't feel like you're in a big car. The cockpit, I mean, it's shaped just around me, so I kind of see where they wanted to go with this center dash kind of popping out. It is a little bit angled towards me. It is also angled towards the passenger, which is a weird way of doing it, but it does definitely add to the sense of excitement. The engine and the steering wheel are both extremely responsive, working in tandem. I mean, yes, you get that in a lot of cars, but you don't get that in cars that are in this price range, that are hatchbacks, that are so practical. You really don't get that anywhere else. Maybe in an Alpha, some of those kind of lower end models that you still have some excitement, but this might be even above those. I mean, everything about it is very athletic. Now, in regular everyday driving scenarios, just going straight, you know, the steering wheel doesn't really hit a bump and veer off. It doesn't do any of that. It really communicates well with the driver. I feel totally in control, and yet I know how sharp and kind of agile the car is. In that sense alone, you can really compare this to a BMW's performance, to the BMW driving experience, which offers the best driving experience of its European counterparts, the Mercedes, the Audi. This and the BMW are really on par as far as driving experience and excitement when it comes to these base models. Now that we went over the pros and the cons of the exterior design, the interior features, and the overall driving experience, let me tell you my conclusion for this car, whether I think you should buy one or not. Now, first things first, the main problem I have with this car is that it hasn't changed at all in 4 years, and we all remember it when it first came out in 2017. And so until now, to see that it's the exact same it has been, the interior hasn't evolved, that's the main issue. Now, should you buy a Stinger or not? Well, here's the way I look at it. Okay, of course, we have to throw it out there. It's not nearly as nice as a BMW, Mercedes, or an Audi, but nor is it trying to be. I believe at a $33,000 price point, it's way cheaper than any of its European counterparts. So I'll throw that argument out entirely. It's not like any of them, nor is it trying to be. Now, is it as economical and affordable as, say, an Accord or a Camry? No, it's not, and neither is it trying to be that. Again, this has a $33,000 price point. It's between the two. It doesn't have to mesh into either of those categories. I think the Kia Stinger went towards being the best car in its price range, in its field, and it is very much the most practical car in its field. It is probably the best looking car at its price point. I mean, I think they've done a great job of what they were aiming for. Now, I'd like to make the case that the GT line, which is the version we are in now, is probably the trim level to get. And even though it's the base trim level, hear me out. There is still the regular GT, which is above this. Then there's the GT1 and there's the GT2. Those come with the V6 options, the bigger engine, more power, a little bit more features. But the GT2 starts to become a little over $50,000. Now you are in BMW 5 Series territory, where you're just not going to be able to make the argument that it's worth getting a Kia Stinger over even the base regular 5 Series, the 530. You're just not going to be able to convince anyone of that. You can't even convince yourself. So I would not go the GT2 route. The GT1 and the GT still are a little bit pricey. Yes, if you really care about having a little bit more power, you can go that route. But the more you increase the price of this car, the harder it becomes to sell. And as I said, the more you increase the price of this car, you now have to convince more people that a Kia was worth spending over $40,000, over $50,000. And that's tough because people's notion of a Kia is still, you know, the buyers of Kias are people who have horrendous credit. That really is the way people still look at Kias. It doesn't matter if it's a Stinger. That's going to be a problem. As nice of a car that Kia makes, unless they branch off and do what Hyundai did with the Genesis, you're just not going to get over that notion that you're still driving a Kia. I mean, back then, you just have to go back 10 years, you know, one generation back, where your Kia would double its value if you filled up a full tank of gas. Not in this car. These are nice cars now, but still, people's notion still goes back there. So if you're in the market for a $33,000 car that can do a little bit of everything while still looking extremely stylish, being totally practical, and offering very attractive lease deals, this is the car for you. I do not recommend stepping up to the GT, the GT1, or the GT2 models, because now you're just in a totally different price range. Now it's going to be hard for you to argue over getting something like its European counterparts. I said this when I drove the Genesis, and I will say it again for the Kia. Hyundai and Kia have both really made a lot of steps forward in having a presence amongst its competitors in its price range, really becoming nicer cars, becoming desirable cars, and still offering great reliability, great lease deals. They just need a little bit more time. So yes, you can pick one of these up, but I do still think it is still a waiting game. The Genesis is only going to get nicer. They're on a really fast, they got a running head start, and they're going to catch up to the game. They're going to do it probably within the next 10 years. I would suggest getting a Kia, getting a Genesis. These are going to be really nice cars to get. With all that said, that's going to wrap it up for the review of the Kia Stinger GT line. Thank you so much for watching. Like I said, if you enjoy reviews like this, where I quickly go through the pros and cons of these cars, please subscribe to the channel, scroll down, smash the like button, follow me on Instagram. The handle is AdamDrivesLA, just like the name of the channel, and I will see you in the next car.